بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد, continuing our classes in the great work of Al-Imam Al-Ajurri rahimahullah ta'ala, Akhlaq Al-Ulama, Kitabu Akhlaq Al-Ulama, the book with regards to the clarification of the manners of the people of knowledge. We have been reading from the chapter the author he mentions, Babu Awsaf Al-Ulama الذين نفعهم الله بالعلم في الدنيا والآخرة. The chapter the author entitled the description and characteristics, the descriptions and characteristics or the traits of the people of knowledge, those whom Allah has benefited them with knowledge in this life and in the hereafter. And this title in our previous classes, قد مرت بنا بعض الفوائد. Some benefits have passed with regards to this title. Who can mention something beneficial they remember? The author, he made the chapter with regards to the attributes and characteristics of those scholars that Allah benefited them with knowledge in this life and in the hereafter.
Careful with the company that they keep. They go to the master with those.
We want to talk about, before we're going into the, that's further detail. We want to talk about the title here. What can we say about that? Benefits from this statement here. The description, characteristics of the scholars, of the ulama, those people of knowledge, those whom Allah benefited them with knowledge in this life and in the hereafter.
They acted upon it.
So, we want to go back to the point though. You're right. Naam? They're the Warathat al-Anbiya, so they're the inheritors of the prophets. But the title here, what can we benefit from this? Benefits we can derive from just the title itself, not thinking about what he mentioned after that. They're different from the average Muslim. Okay, say it again. I think you're right there.
The difference between, a knowledgeable person and a layman.
You can see the difference between a knowledgeable person and a layman. He's getting close.
That there are some of the ulama who Allah did not benefit in this life.
That's one point that we have to be aware of. He's indicating this here, and he'll actually make a chapter for that specifically type of person after this chapter. Or after this book here. Now, that there are people of knowledge who Allah did not benefit them with knowledge in this life nor in the hereafter. So he's mentioning these words in this description, like for example, these are all descriptions of that scholar. That scholar, what scholar? That alim, what alim? The one Allah benefited him with knowledge in this life and in the hereafter. So we understand that opposite of that, there are those people of knowledge. There are people who ascribe to knowledge. There are people who have knowledge. There are people who seek knowledge. There are people who sit in classes and durus with the ulama. But Allah did not benefit them with knowledge in this life and in the hereafter. This is a reality we have to be aware of. So the author, he's mentioning this. Now, there's another benefit here also. Babu, dhikri, naam.
To recognize, to follow them.
To
Recognize who is right.
To recognize. This is what the brother was touching on. But we want to hit it, like they say, on the head, the nail on the head. How do you recognize? How do you recognize them?
Because they act in knowledge.
Their wisdom, their knowledge, and their actions.
The word is in the title. The word, the answer we found one answer here, the ones who Allah benefited with knowledge. So there are those who Allah didn't benefit them with knowledge from the people of knowledge. Like dhikr awsaf. Here he's not mentioning people So-and-so, Allah didn't benefit with knowledge. So-and-so, the son of so-and-so, Allah didn't benefit with knowledge. So-and-so, the son of... So he's not mentioning names and people. What did he say? Descriptions, the characteristics, the traits of those scholars whom Allah benefited them with knowledge. So if you remember, the benefit from there is the importance of learning the attributes of the people and the descriptions. And there are people who have good attributes and good characteristics, and Allah mentioned them in His book, and He called them by different names, like Al-Muttaqun, Wal-Muhsinun, Wal-Sadiqun, Wal-Siddiqun. Allah mentioned these praiseworthy people, but He doesn't mention them by their names. He mentioned them, subhanahu wa ta'ala, by attributes, characteristics. Likewise, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he didn't, out of the number of companions and believers that was along with him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he only mentioned a handful of them, a few of them, compared to the great multitude of them. By the time in the farewell pilgrimage, he only mentioned some of them by name, that they're from the people of paradise. He mentioned some of them by name, that they have certain characteristics that are good qualities, and he mentioned some by name that are no good, or that are hypocrites, or that they are evil, and the likes like this. But other than that few, the origin is that a person will know the people of goodness and the people of falsehood by their characteristics, by their traits, by their characteristics and by their traits. So then it's very important to learn, and this is how he's teaching us. He's teaching us here about the characteristics of those people of knowledge. Why? So if we see them, we'll know who they are. If we see them, we know who they are. So whenever we see the characteristic and these traits and manners in a person, well, we know he's from the people of knowledge. And likewise, he will clarify the characteristics of those who did not benefit with knowledge likewise, and we will see their characteristics likewise. So a person can see that. And he mentioned also before he began this chapter that he summarized these characteristics in order for a person to look and strive to be like them. So if he sees these characteristics of a person, it's like he can see the individual. He's like giving him a blueprint of that type of person. How does he look? How does he act in every situation? How does that person of knowledge, how did he get there? Because if you know how he got there and what he did to get there, then you can strive to be like him and try to catch up with him, or try to be on his tail, on his steps. They say, ala al-athar, and he on his trace, and he following his steps, and he following the narrations behind them precisely. So then we learn that it's very important to learn the attributes and descriptions of the people. Now, and this is beneficial. So we have this benefit here. Also, he mentioned that he's mentioning these clarification of these attributes and characteristics, so that if a person from the people of knowledge, he looks in himself, and if he sees that he's falling short in these characteristics, he can repent and he can rectify himself. So the intent of the author is a good intent. It's nasiha wa nush lil muslimin. He wants to advise them and direct them. Those who do not know or they're not aware, they can learn these characteristics and strive to obtain them and to work by way of them. Those people who are setting out on the path of knowledge, they can learn that this is the way. Because there are many people who claim knowledge, and not all of them are from those who benefit by their knowledge. Not all of them are from those who benefit from their knowledge, especially in these days, whenever knowledge is spreading to many lands, and knowledge is spreading easy and in moments. Before, you have to travel to seek knowledge or to meet the people of knowledge, or you would have to make effort to find the people of knowledge and the likes like this. But today, the knowledge comes to anybody. And plus, those people of knowledge, they used to be very diligent to protect the knowledge, and they wouldn't just give it to everybody, and they wouldn't just fall in the hands of the wicked easily, and they wouldn't just fall in the hands of the disbelievers and the likes like this. But rather, they would be cautious who they dealt with, and they would teach the people who are upright, and they sought the knowledge for the sake of Allah. That's what appeared to them. But now we see that knowledge is going everywhere and lands in everybody's pocket, and anybody can get a hold of it any time. And this, in one aspect, is beneficial for those who want to obtain it for Allah's sake and to apply it, and it's also harmful for others who get a hold of that knowledge and they use it to their benefit, and they lower that knowledge and by using it for worldly gains. So the one who did that, if he knows these attributes and he's sincere, he will see that, and he will strive to rectify himself. The author, he mentioned this right before this introduction. We've seen likewise after this, the author, this is the main title of this chapter. After that, there's subtitles. He mentioned his attribute whenever he's seeking knowledge. His attribute whenever he's seeking knowledge. Who remembers that? What is his main characteristic when he's seeking knowledge? If you asked him, the one who benefit from his knowledge, why did you seek knowledge? Or why do you seek knowledge?
To remove the ignorance from yourself.
To remove ignorance from himself and others. Sah. Clarify what that means. To stop himself from sinning. Allahu Akbar. Jahl. Sinning is jahl. Jahala. Kullu min as-Salafy huwa jahil. Everyone who sinned and disobeyed Allah, then he's ignorant. Naam, he's ignorant. So he to raise ignorance from himself so that he is not sinning. And the author, he mentioned the reason why he seeks knowledge, and he clarifying that meaning. To give a detailed clarification of that is because he knows that Allah created him to worship him. And he knows that it's an obligation for him to worship Allah Azza wa Jal. He knows that. He's aware of these evidences. Allah, that he is a creature. He is a creation. And Allah created him for a purpose and provided and sustained for him for a purpose. And he knows that. And he's aware, فَعْلَمْ أَنَّهُ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ. And he's aware of طَلَبُ الْعِلْمِ فَرِيضَةٌ عَلَى كُلِّ Muslim. So then he knows this obligation, so he seeks knowledge for this reason. Because he knows, likewise, it's not befitting for a Muslim, somebody who knows this information, somebody who knows that Allah is his creator and sustainer and provider, and he knows that Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam is the final prophet and messenger, and that there are angels riding, and that there's a day of resurrection, and there's accountability, and like somebody who knows that, it's not befitting for him to be ignorant of how to worship Allah Azza wa Jalla. It's not befitting for him to be ignorant and to not know how to fulfill that purpose that he knows he was created for. How to fill those scriptures with goodness that he knows are being written. How to stay away from the evil, that he knows the angels are taking the deeds. And just to be heedless of that, and he knows it's there, he knows the reality of that, and then he does not care or have any concern. So he's not like that. He knows this, he doesn't want to be like that. It's not good for him to be ignorant, so he strives to seek knowledge so that he can remove the ignorance from himself and worship Allah Azza wa Jalla upon clarity. And he knows what Allah has commanded him so he can do it, and he knows what Allah has prohibited him so that he can leave it. And then so he can help others. So he doesn't want to be a loser. And this person who has benefited from knowledge like this is why he seeks knowledge. Who can summarize that in one chapter of the Quran? Ahsant. You see how Surah Al-Asr, the knowledge of the Sharia is very, very beautiful, and of course it's revelation. But how it's interlocked. How it's interlocked and it supports each other. You learn about Tawheed, you learn about Hadith. They support each other. You learn about Usul al-Fiqh, you'll find out about how to understand Hadith. You learn about Usul al-Hadith, you learn about Usul al-Tafsir. All of this is helping you to have Tawheed. All of this is helping you to find the Sunnah. You'll study this subject way over here, or an issue in Luqah, and from that issue you come over here and you benefit. It's all locked together like this. So it's very important to learn those usul like that. But the knowledge is related. For example, he's telling us now the attributes of those scholars who benefited from their knowledge. That Allah benefited from them in this life and the hereafter. So then we could say they are الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. They're the leaders of that people. They're the leaders of those people. They're at the top of the list, at the top of the peak of those people. That Allah mentioned in Asr and Surah Al-Asr, that they're not losers, that they're winners, that they're the successful, they're the leaders of the believers, and the best Sadatul Awliya in calling, in knowledge and action and calling and being patient. So then this is the clarification of that chapter. It could be in a sense how you understand that those people who believe and work righteous deeds and call to the truth and are patient upon that way, they're the first and foremost, these ulama who Allah Azza wa Jal has benefited them with knowledge. So if you don't want to be a loser, follow their way. He's giving us this description in detail here. What is their way? How do they act? Ahsantum. So al-ilmu ibadah has to be sincerely for the sake of Allah. There was another benefit. The author is may Allah reward him and have mercy on him, forgive him, and pardon him, and raise his rank. Rahimahullah ta'ala. He mentioned very, very, very precious benefits. He mentioned the benefit about how he feels whenever he increases in knowledge. And what does his mind go through? And how does he deal with himself whenever he increases in knowledge? He becomes more humble, no doubt. That's right. Sahih. But the author, he mentioned a specific detail. A specific detail. If we ponder over the statement of the author, we will understand the mention of those attributes that he mentioned in the beginning. إِنَّمَا يَخْشَى اللَّهَ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ الْعُلَمَاء. The statement here is a detailed clarification of the meaning of that verse. What does that mean? The only servants who truly fear me, those who truly fear me from my servants are the ulama. They truly fear me, revere and reverence and fear. That's what Allah mentioned in His book. إِنَّمَا يَخْشَى اللَّهَ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ الْعُلَمَاء. The author, he mentioned a statement that brings much light to the understanding of that verse. Pass by us. Maybe the last class or the one before that. With regards to his learning, what does he do whenever he learns? Every time he increases in knowledge, what happens inside of his self, inside of his soul? How does he feel?
His fear of his Lord increases.
Why?
Because he's learned more about how majestic his Lord is.
That's right. You're on the way.
Because he knows. Because he knows nothing. The more he learns, the more he knows that he knows nothing.
We're right there. Sahih. Being thankful. This is all right answers, but it's not the answer to the question exactly. We want to be. Every time he increases in knowledge, قال كلما ازداد علما ازداد إشفاقا. كلما ازداد علما ازداد إشفاقا. قال إن ازداد علما خاف من ثبات الحجة. خاف من ثبات الحجة. Every time he increased in knowledge, he is more afraid. Every time he increased in knowledge, he increased in fear of Allah, because now that knowledge is a proof against him. So, for example, somebody he didn't know, you have to say Bismillah before you eat. Then now he knows that, now he has to apply that. وَمَا كُنَّا مُعَذِّبِينَ حَتَّى نَبْعَثَ رَسُولًا. The hujjah qa'imah now. So now if he eats and doesn't say Bismillah, he's going to be held accountable. If he knows he has to pray, whatever, the more he learns, the more details he learns about the deen, about the sharia, these details are proofs against him if he does not apply them. So the more he learns, the more he's afraid of that proof being established against him. So the more somebody he's afraid that the proof is going to be against him, what is he going to do? He's going to do whatever he can to make sure that proof is not against him, it's for him. So he's going to apply it. He's going to work harder. So he learns more, he works harder. What caused him to work harder? The fear of Allah Azza wa Jal. How did the fear come? Because knowledge. Knowledge of what? The proof and the evidence. The knowledge of Allah, His greatness. He finds out how merciful He is and also how severe in punishment He is. He finds out how He accepts certain types of worship and does not accept other types of worship. How dangerous showing off is in worship. How dangerous disobedience is. All of these things He's learning the proper way. He's learning the sunnah. Now these are all proofs against him. If he doesn't apply all these things, it's going to be held accountable. He's going to be held accountable. So then he's afraid of being taken into account for the knowledge that he learned. So this causes him to fear Allah Azza wa Jalla. That fear causes him to act. إِنَّمَا يَخْشَى اللَّهَ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ الْعُلَمَاء. This is how could somebody be on that path from those who truly fear Allah Azza wa Jalla, like this, by learning and then being afraid of what he learned, that it would be a proof against him. Being afraid that he would do something or he would know something and not do it. Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu said he was afraid, لَسْتُ تَارِكًا شَيْئًا مِنْ سَمِعْتُهُ مِنْ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ صَلَى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وسلم. I'm not leaving nothing that I heard the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam say or do. Afraid that if I left it, if إِنْ تَرَكْتُهُ that I would go astray. Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, he's afraid that if he left something the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam did, he would go astray. So the issue here, this is a wonderful benefit. This is how we treat knowledge. This is how we respect knowledge. This is how we honor this knowledge, this revelation. That if we learn it, we learn it for the purpose of applying it. And then if we have it, we will be afraid that we will not use it. We will be afraid that we would not apply it. We'll be afraid that we learn these hadith and these narrations about how to deal with your brother and cover his fault, and then we go expose him. Do the opposite thing. We'll be afraid of that. We'll be afraid of that. We'll learn the dangers of backbiting, and then we'll sit in gatherings and backbite. We'll be afraid. A'udhu billah. He's afraid that would happen. He's afraid that would happen. He would not want that to happen. He would do whatever he can to stop that from happening. Somebody start backbiting around him, but like, wait, you can't backbite, it's haram. The Prophet ﷺ, he said this, Allah, he said that. He would tell him first, because he doesn't. I know I can't backbite. I'm not going to be held accountable for this. I learned that. I don't want to be held accountable for that. And this is the fear that knowledge brings, if it's beneficial. That's that description here. Those ones who Allah benefited him with knowledge, and that's the meaning. إِنَّمَا يَخْشَى اللَّهَ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ الْعُلَمَاء. The only ones who truly fear Allah from His servants are the people of knowledge. That's how. They're afraid of their knowledge. They're afraid of being taken into account for their knowledge. So that fear causes them to work. That fear causes them to apply the knowledge in the manner that is proper and befitting. And if they fall short in the application of that knowledge, whether falling short in the obligation or fell into the prohibition, they will hasten, because they know that they know they transgressed, so they will hasten to repent. This is the fear that is beneficial, and this is the knowledge that is nafi', that it will cause the person to work and to act. That will cause the person to work and to act in a manner that is pleasing to Allah Azza wa Jalla. Now, the author, he mentioned, we begin the new chapter. He says, what's actually, we're still in the same chapter, it's a sub-chapter. Now the sifatu majarisati, sifatu mujalasatihi lil-ulama. Sifatu mujalasatihi lil-ulama. The description of how he sits with the ulama. And this is the characteristic or the description of how he sits with the people of knowledge. How does he sit with them? He said, Rahimahullah, فَإِذَا حَبَّ مُجَالَسَةِ الْعُلَمَاء جَالَسَهُمْ بِأَدَبٍ وَتَوَاضُعٍ فِي نَفْسِهِ وَخَفْضِ صَوْتِهِ عِنْدَ صَوْتِهِمْ. That if he would like to sit in their gatherings, the gatherings of the ulama, he would sit with them with etiquettes and manners. And he would sit with them with humbleness and his self. And he would lower his voice towards their voice. He wouldn't raise their voice over. He wouldn't raise his voice over their voice. What does it say? Which one? وخفض صوته. مضبوط. فإذا أحب مجالسة العلماء جالسهم بأدب وتواضع في نفسه وخفض صوته. نعم. Or you could say وخفض صوته. And it's all معطوف on the same. The meaning is the same thing. وخفض صوته أو خفض لصوته أو خفض صوته. نعم. Lowering his voice. جزاك الله خيرا. If you see a different in the text, no, that's good. We have different prints. We see the differences in the prints. Which one is correct? This one, he actually has made muqabala and checked this text here on several. You see here several manuscripts. So the ulama, they whenever they print books, the more manuscripts that they can rely on, the more authentic the manuscripts are, the more beneficial and correct the work will be. The book will be, they'll call it the tahqiq. And so this one has several different actual manuscripts. You see he put several of the pages in the beginning. So this is one thing that will make the work more valuable and then more beneficial. And the ulama will decide from this which one is the best print. We hear that's the best print, that's not the best print. This is why. Sometimes they will rely upon these different types of manuscripts. Sometimes somebody will rely on one manuscript. The other one, he will 2, 3, 4, 5 manuscripts. Some of them will be a manuscript that's very recent. The other one will be a manuscript that's really old. Sometimes they'll come with a manuscript with the handwriting of the author, like this, or the handwriting of the student, I remember one time we read the 1,000 Lines of Poetry by Iraqi, with Sheikh Muhammad, Hafidhahullah, and he had the book. We had the book, and he had the manuscript in the handwriting of Ibn Hajar. Ibn Hajar is a student of Iraqi. So we're reading the book, and he's reading the manuscript, and he's checking the manuscript and correcting the book with the manuscript of Ibn Hajar, with his handwriting, and That's the student of your aqid. That's very high up, checking. So anyways, the ulama, they look at this. So if we have different manuscripts and they're different, it's good to know. We can look at them. Barakallah feek. This particular book, alhamdulillah, I read this book on Sheikh Ali. And he told us whenever we read it, he said, you have this book, you have that copy. Everybody have a different copy. Yeah, everybody should have a different. That way we can check, just like that. He made sure that another brother had a different type of طبع. حفظه الله. وصفة مجالسة العلماء أو صفة مجالسته للعلماء. His description whenever he's sitting with the ulama. So he sits like this. He sits, if he wants to sit with the ulama and sit in their gatherings, he'll sit with manners. And he will sit in a humble fashion, not arrogantly. And he will also lower his voice towards their voice. He wouldn't raise his voice above the voice of the teacher, of the scholar. He said, وَسَأَلَهُمْ بِخُضُوعٍ, and he would ask them questions with humbleness, not with arrogance. And this is a very important point here. Asking questions. Asking questions is very beneficial. And the one who has a sincere intention in asking questions, then we'll find that the answer sometimes will be very beneficial likewise. He has, from the beneficial ways of seeking knowledge, and from the great means of obtaining khair and beneficial knowledge is to ask a beneficial question. And to ask a question with sincerity. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a lot of times He will put blessing in the answer for that. And we see that many of the works of the ulama, many of the books of the ulama, you will find like Umdat al-Ahkam, or like, for example, Nukhbat al-Fikr, and other works besides that, many works. You will find in the beginning that the author will mention, I'm writing this work because some of the students of knowledge asked me to summarize for them this issue. So the result of a question of some of their students, or so-and-so asked me this question, here's the response, like this. And so they'll ask, and then the result will be this great benefit. Likewise, in the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, there's a proof for this also. Asking questions and bringing much khair. The hadith of Jibreel. Naam. Whenever the Prophet ﷺ with his companions, Jibreel, he came and he asked the question. This type of question here, he's not asking a question because he does not know. He's asking a question in order to teach. So also from the beneficial means of asking a question is that a person, he will know that there are people in the gathering who are in need of the knowledge. That he will know that there are people in the gathering who are in need of the knowledge. So he will ask the question. Not because he doesn't know, but because he wants the other people, his brothers, to benefit and hear. So he will ask the question for this reason. And on the other hand, there are people who have bad intentions when asking questions. So from the attribute of those people who have goodness, they ask a question with a good intention. They want to know. He's going to mention also which question it takes preference. So you ask a question, and because you want to know, so you have sincerity, you want to learn. So you ask the question. You don't know, so you ask the question. This, and with sincerity to learn. This is benefit here. But some people, they ask questions not because they want to know. Some people, and the ulama, they mention this. And this is very beneficial for people to learn and be aware of. And they also to be aware of that the people of knowledge, they're aware of this. So they shouldn't fall into this, because in reality they're belittling themselves. Because the people are able, especially somebody who has experience with knowledge and with dealing with the people in general, he can pick out that person by the way they ask questions. Some people, they ask questions in order to cause fitna. Some people, the intent from his question is to cause fitna. Another person, his intent from the question, what he will do, he will go and pick an issue in the deen, maybe in fiqh or in aqeedah but it's not an issue like that's something that is well known. Maybe he'll pick an issue that is not well known, or a really detailed, specific issue, and he'll review it real good. This person, this questioner, he'll review it real good and get the question all and find the scholars' opinions and like this, and it'll be kind of like a hard question because there's lots of details, and then he'll go to ask the question because he wants to show that he has knowledge. He asks the question but he prepares before that. He knows the answer, and he'll go to ask the question because he wants to make the people that around think that he has knowledge, or he wants to make the sheikh think that he has knowledge. So he'll ask him. Other times, worse than that, he'll want to do that to try to put the sheikh and to humiliate him, because sometimes some issues you have to have, they require review, and maybe this type of issue is not something that is commonly asked, or detailed. This question in this detailed matter is not a common issue in the deen, and that you go over daily. So it requires review for it to stay and the details to be there. So he'll review it real good and then go ask the question in order to try to belittle him or cause him to fall into an error. And the author, he will mention these things, these points. That's from those attributes of those people who did not benefit. They called him Ugluta. This difficult, hard issues and questions, but they ask the question for this reason: either to show that they have knowledge, or to put the sheikh in a position where he looks like he doesn't know anything, or to look like that person is more knowledgeable than him. And all of these are from foul intentions in asking questions. These are all from foul intentions from asking questions. Another thing the author, he now mentions, so he says here, whenever he asks a question, how does he ask? He asks him in a humble manner. And he comes as somebody who's learning. He asks the question, and also this is how he sits in the gathering. He sits in the gathering of a student, not as a teacher. And how does he talk to the teacher? He talks to the teacher as a student, not as a teacher. Some people, they talk to the teacher like he's the teacher. Some people, they talk to the sheikh like he's the sheikh. And that's how like he's the sheikh, he talked to the sheikh. Well, he's asking the question, but it's like he's telling him the answer, or he's telling him the question. This is all from bad manners. So here he asks the question, how does he say? وَسَأَلَهُمْ بِالْخُضُوعِ. And he humbly, in a good manner. And then he mentioned a very beautiful point here. He says, وَيَكُونُ أَكْثَرُ سُؤَالِهِ عَنْ عِلْمٍ أو عن علم ما تعبده الله به ويكون أكثر سؤاله عن علم ما تعبده الله به. And the majority of his questions will be with regards to the things that Allah made obligatory for him, or made obligatory upon him with regards to worship. And that's an obligation. And an obligation on how to perform his obligation that he's held accountable for. So some people, they'll ask questions that don't concern them. They'll ask questions about issues that if he knows the answer or didn't know the answer, it doesn't matter. He'll come, Sheikh, I have a question. You say, what kind of tree did Adam eat from? Like this. You say, Subhanallah ya akhi. He said, what do you do if you pray without wudu? I don't know. He said, it's more right for you to ask about this, because if you pray without wudu, your salah, you might not be accepted. But if you know what kind of a tree it was, or you don't know, what's the benefit? What's the benefit? Is there benefit? No, there's no benefit. If you know what kind of tree that Adam alayhi salam ate from, is there like a hukum that's going to come from that? Some way you could draw near to Allah Azza wa Jal and do? If you don't know it's going to harm you, you're going to fall into sin maybe, or danger. Nah, this is not a beneficial question. So similar to like this is just one example. But so we think about that. Before we ask about sometimes, and also, barakallah fikum jami'an, not everything that comes to mind we ask. Sometimes everything pops in his mind, he asks. Sometimes you just wait a second and you'll realize that that's not even a good question. So not everything pops to the mind. First thing you have to ask it. So make sure the question is a good question. But then at the same time, it's a moderate course. We don't be shy. Oh, this is not a good question. If it's related to your deen, if it's related to sin and transgression, or to be upright and good, pious and like this, if it's related to what's obligatory, ask. There's no small question. I know somebody, one time, one of my companions, he asked the scholar, he asked Sheikh Muhammad in the Kuliya about the aura. And there was a student behind us, and I was in the back, there was a lot of people, and there's a student behind him belittling my brother. Belittling him. He came all this way, he's going to ask about the aura. I was like, A'udhu Billah. Well, this is wajib, this is deen, this is why probably, subhanAllah, this is how he's treating the brother. This is how, in his mind, this is a student of knowledge, you've been there for some time. I'm like, yeah, that's not right. And this is something obligatory. Who else are you going to ask about the awrah? You ask the ulama. This is a good question. If you don't know, especially, you ask. So, it's very important, to ask questions. What has been mentioned from that likewise is from Mujahid, rahimahullah. He says, لا يتعلم العلم مستحيا ولا مستكبر ولا مستكبر. استغفر الله. لا يتعلم العلم مستحيا ولا مستكبر. The one who is shy and the one who is arrogant, he will not learn knowledge. He will not learn knowledge. So we ask, but the Shaykh here, or the Al-Imam Al-Ajuri rahimahullah ta'ala, the author, he's teaching us how to ask. So we're not shy to ask, but we don't ask things that are not beneficial. And how do you know if something's not beneficial or not? That's a good question, huh? I think we need to know that.
If it's going to affect if it affects your worship and your akhirah.
If it affects your akhirah, your worship and your akhirah. This is a good question. Ahsant. If it's dealing with halal and haram, it's a good question. Impermissible or not permissible, it's a good question. Like if it's dealing with the worship of Allah, if it's dealing with an obligatory affair, it's a good question. If it's dealing with something on how to get close to Allah, it's a good question. If it's something outside of that, this is not a good question. It's not a good question. Like the example that I mentioned. If it's going to benefit you, or if you know it or you don't know it, you could be harmed or benefited. And based upon that, and your deen or your dunya, then it's a good question. It's a good question. Now, so he said the majority of his questions will be about these affairs, that which Allah has made it obligatory for him to know. So another time we find that people, they will ask about individuals. And no doubt knowing about individuals is important. Knowing about individuals is part of the deen. Knowing about who you can take knowledge from and who you can't take knowledge from, this is a very important part of the deen. And a believer, he must be aware of that. But there's also a middle course in that. And shaitan, he has drugged some people away from the straight path in that issue. And they have become infatuated with who is so and 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 so on, like this, until they have become preoccupied with that, and they don't even know how to make wudu, and they don't know how to recite Fatiha. Ya akhi, learn that it's obligatory for you to recite the Fatiha. This person is in another country, in another language, in another. It's not. If you don't know about him, and you learn that this takes precedence over that. You learn what takes precedence, what the knowledge that comes first. Now, if there's some people in your vicinity, or they're going to affect you, or they're your family, then you know about them. Yes, you know about them, but not every single person, every single issue, every single thing that goes on in the field, you have to know about what so and so said, and so and so said, and then so and so said, and then so and so said. This is not beneficial for especially not for the layman brothers who are learning, and the students of knowledge who are new. And this is distracting them, and this is also discouraging them, and this is confusing them. But you know where you get the knowledge from, and you go to there and you get knowledge. And you know that where not to get knowledge from, you don't go there. As for dealing with that all the time, all you do is talk about that only, like that's the whole deen. La, that's a portion of the deen, and that is preserved like that, so this can be learned. And so the goal is to learn how to worship Allah Azza wa Jal. The goal is to learn how to get to paradise and to get to Jannah properly and safely, and to stay away from the anger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. From that is knowing about people. From that is knowing about misguided callers. From that is knowing about people of deviation. From this is part of the deen, and this must be known. But it's not the whole deen. It's not the whole deen. So you learn that for that reason, not for that reason. You don't learn about who is misguided so you can talk about him the whole time, every single gathering. So-and-so is misguided, so-and-so is misguided, so-and-so. Nah. You know that so that you can benefit from that knowledge and you don't be misguided by him. As for to talk about him with no reason and no purpose and just to say so-and-so is misguided, so-and-so is misguided, it's not correct. It's not correct. And if you see somebody who's going to him, now you tell him, no, so-and-so is misguided. and you mention to him the proof and the evidence like this, or you see somebody ask you about him, you tell him the case. But just to sit there and we just sit all day long talking about the misguidance of so-and-so and nothing else to do better than that, this is wasting time. And it's not permissible to talk about people like that. Only to warn from them or the likes whenever there's a need. There's a need that's established to talk about that and to warn somebody, you talk about them. Other than that, we don't have to sit all day long and talk about the Ikhwan Muslimin. We know they're misguided. We don't got to sit all day long and talk about the guidance of the Tablighiyyun. We know they're misguided. If somebody comes to us and he's affected by them, now we're going to go to detail with him. Or some the likes like this. As for that, we know about them, we stay away from them, and then we seek knowledge and we learn. This is the case. This is the case. Barakallahu fikum. So if he asks about that which is beneficial. So many people, they get involved in this, brothers, and they don't know how to make wudu. They don't know the shurut of salat. Their family goes on menses. They don't know what to say to them. And all day they know all this other stuff. All about this. So-and-so said this, and he refuted that, and then he refuted this, and he refuted that. You didn't see what so-and-so said. He wrote this, and he wrote that. Akhi, this is, you go into ghulu. Shaitan will take him into extremes. Take him to extreme. This is from the ways that many of our brothers have been misguided. May Allah guide them. May Allah guide them. So it's a middle course. We learn about that and stay away from it. Now, we learn about the evil. We learn about deviation and the deviated people to stay away from them and help our brothers stay away from them. But that's not our only concern. Our concern is to worship Allah. Our concern is to draw near to Allah. Our concern is to die upon the straight path. Our concern is to help our family learn Tawheed. Our concern is to pray a prayer that's accepted. To prostrate, a prostration that's accepted. Some of the Salaf, they would say, if I knew that one prostration was accepted, I would wish that I died. I would like to die, because Allah, He only accepts from those who are righteous. So if one prostration was accepted, alhamdulillah, that means that He's righteous. Let's go. Die in a time of piety. So we benefit from our knowledge, but we don't go to extremes in these issues like this. He says, وَيُخْبِرُهُمْ, and he's continuing, and the methodology of asking questions. وَيُخْبِرُهُمْ أَنَّهُ فَقِيرٌ إِلَىٰ عِلْمٍ وَيُخْبِرُهُمْ أَنَّهُ فَقِيرٌ إِلَىٰ عِلْمِ مَا يَسْأَلُ عَنْهُ. So this is how he asked. He asked with a low voice. He doesn't raise his voice over his voice. The majority of the things that he asks are the things that are obligatory. And whenever he asks, he informs him. That he will inform him. I want to know because I don't know. I want to know how to do this. Yani how I'm asking you because I need to know. I need to know. Like this. Now he says also فإذا استفاد منهم علما أعلمهم أنه قد أفدت خيرا كثيرا أو قد أفدت خيرا كثيرا. So you say to him, if you benefit from him, if you benefit from the person of knowledge, he says that you tell him. You tell him, you say, I benefited a lot from you, or you benefited me a lot. Like this. So this is from the good manners of a student. If he benefit from his teacher, he tell him, Jazakallah khair. Jazakallah khair, I benefited a lot from the class, and so on and so forth. Huh? Anni. Anni. أيوة. فإذا استفاد, man says إذا استفاد منهم علما أعلمهم أني قد أفدت خيرا من كثيرا أني قد أفدت خيرا أيوة كثيرا جزاك الله خيرا. Then that's أني قد أفدت خيرا كثيرا. You tell him that I verily benefited from you a lot. That's what you say to him. نعم. يعني استفدت خيرا كثيرا. أو أفدت منك خيرا كثيرا. نعم. ثم شكرهم على ذلك, and then he will thank him. يعني جزاك الله خيرا. جزاك الله خير. It was benefit. It was beneficial. I benefited from that. بارك الله فيك. جزاك الله خيرا. نعم. So the author, he mentions the manners on how to sit with the people of knowledge, and from them is you ask them with good manners and conduct and humbly, and you ask them something that's obligatory and beneficial for you to know, something that you don't know, and something that you need to know, something that will benefit you if you know, and they don't ask on things that are not beneficial or things that do not concern you, and the likes like that. And then likewise from the question, you ask the one that's most beneficial. So some people will be busy with something and it's beneficial, but before that there's something more beneficial and more important for him to know. He'll ask questions about some things, and then come to find out he doesn't know how to fix his salat if he forgets. His salat is the greatest obligation after after the Shahada. So to learn the affairs of the Salat and for him to ask about the Salat is more important if he didn't ask that yet. And he didn't learn that yet. And likewise, ablution and wudu and ghusl, these affairs, they take precedence. Or he asked questions about issues and he didn't learn the meaning of La ilaha illallah. So you say, La ilaha illallah. He didn't learn the meaning of the foundation of the deen. Better than asking about these other affairs, Akhi, what is the meaning of La ilaha illallah? And he didn't know, where is your Lord? And asking all these questions, silly questions like this, where is Allah? He will say everywhere, some of them. So asking a question is important. And knowing how to ask it likewise is important. Naam, so if he benefit likewise, if we benefit from the people of knowledge, we tell them, Jazakallah khairah, I benefit from you. I benefit from you. It was beneficial. Jazakallah khairah, like this he says. And then now he says, وَإِنْ غَضِبُوا عَلَيْهِ لَمْ يَغْضَبْ عَلَيْهِمْ. If they get mad at him, he doesn't get mad at them. And sometimes maybe the student will make a mistake or do something or whatever. Maybe the scholar or the teacher will have, for whatever the reason may be, on that day he got angry with the student. Or he dealt with him in a way that he normally didn't deal with him. And especially the people of knowledge, we know that they're known for the most noble manners and characteristics, and being kind and being gentle, and the likes like this. But sometimes maybe they will slip, or maybe sometimes he will for one reason or another, he'll be harsh, and the likes like this. So if that's the case, you don't be harsh back. He says, in غَضِبُوا وَإِنْ غَضِبُوا عَلَيْهِ لَمْ يَغْضَبْ عَلَيْهِمْ. If they get mad at him, and he at the student, or they're harsh and the likes like this, he doesn't return in the same way. He doesn't respond in the same way. وَنَظَرَ إِلَى السَّبَبِ الَّذِي مِنْ أَجْلِهِ غَضِبُوا عَلَيْهِ. And that person should look at the reason why he got mad. Why did he get mad? And every single day he's so nice and kind, and today this one time he's not nice. Why is that? He would think about the reason. Why is that? And if it's my fault, or maybe even at that time he will find maybe he's having a bad day, maybe something happened, or maybe whatever the case may be. Like this, you find an excuse. Especially this is good between brothers likewise in general. He's talking about the sheikh and the student, but in general, you know a brother, for example, and every day he's nice and smiling with you and treating you with the best manners, and then someday maybe he's short. One day out of a month, or 2 months, or a year, he all of a sudden he's short, or he had to go, turn his back quickly, or he didn't respond right away on WhatsApp, or whatever the case may be, and then sometime he's ready to cut ties immediately. Hey, subhanallah, ya akhi, give him a break. And one time, all these days, he's giving money for you, he's helping you, he's smiling to you, he's giving time to you, he's doing whatever he can for you. And one day he has a bad day with you, and then after that, the relationship is done. La, that's not it. Yeah, that's not the right way. That's not the proper way. But rather look at the reason. Maybe I did something. Maybe he did something. In any case, brothers wouldn't act like that. Brothers shouldn't act like that. So he's telling us here with regards to the ulama and the gatherings of the ulama. If they get angry, then you don't get angry with them. Then you look into the reason why did he get mad. فَرَجَعَ عِنْدَ فَرَجَعَ عَنْهُ وَاعْتَذَرَ إِلَيْهِمْ. Then after that he'll go back to them and he'll excuse himself. I apologize if I made you upset, if I made you angry, if I did something that was not right or befitting. I apologize. Barakallah fiqh. And he says, وَلَا يُضْجِرُهُمْ فِي السُّؤَالِ. And he doesn't make them uncomfortable with the question. He doesn't make them uncomfortable with the question. Now, speaking about this, subhanAllah, I came across a benefit about this, and brothers getting mad at each other. And actually, Shaykh Al-Albani, rahimahullah ta'ala, he authenticated a narration from those narrations we have been reading all weekend. And it was from the one wording by Abdullah ibn Umar, radiyallahu anhu. But this wording came many times. Al-Muslimu akhul Muslim. Remember, anybody know that narration? Who didn't memorize that narration yet? Al-Muslimu akhul Muslim. Everybody has to memorize it right now. 3 lines. We studied it all weekend. Al-Muslimu akhul Muslim. 3 words. Al-Muslimu akhul Muslim. Al-Muslimu akhul Muslim. Now, Shaykh Umar he went into details about that narration, Hafidhahullah, wa jazahu anna khairul jaza. So, but there's a wording here, very important, that has come, Shaykh Al-Albani authenticated it. And the Muslim is the brother of the Muslim. He says, La yadhlimuhu wa la yakhzuruhu. This is the part that has preceded in the Dawrah. He doesn't oppress him and he does not abandon him in a time of need. But this part here, this wording here, is very beneficial. And how it came in this hadith, Al-Muslimu akhul Muslim. He said, the Prophet ﷺ said, وَالَّذِي نَفْسِي بِيَدِهِ. I swear by the one whom my soul is in his hand, مَا تَوَادَّ اثْنَانِ ما تواد اثنان. In one narration, في الله عز وجل أو في الإسلام. He said, I swear by the one whom my soul is in his hand that two people never have love for each other for the sake of Allah or for the sake of Islam, فَيُفَرَّقَ بَيْنَهُمْ إِلَّا بِذَنْبٍ يُحْدِثُهُ أَحَدُهُمَا. Or because it's a sin. He said, the Muslim is the brother of the Muslim. And he mentioned the narration, this extra wording here. He said, I swear by the one whom my soul is in his hands, that there are no two people who love each other for the sake of Allah. There's no two people who love each other for the sake of Islam, deen. And then they're separated, except because of a sin that one of them committed. Except because of a sin that one of them committed. So if we look at, sometimes we have our brothers close with us like this, and then something happens. And then sometimes we blame him. Oh, it's your fault. He's this and he's that. Maybe it was your sin. Maybe it was my sin. So a person, he should say, if he sees that, sometimes the Prophet is referring here, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that's the result of a sin. The result of sin. True brothers who love each other. Fillah, fil Islam, yufarraqu baynahuma bidhanbin yuhdithu ahaduhuma, because of a sin. So this is very dangerous for the brotherhood. Sins, they have a terrible result. We have to be cautious. هذا وصلى الله على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم.